Hi, I am your host, Kinara Sankofa, and this is Education in the Community. And today I've decided to call this particular show The Vast Beauty of Art. And we have a very powerful, interesting, and phenomenal artist here with us to share some of his great art with us. I'd like to introduce you to my man, friend, brother, William Rhodes. Welcome to the show, William.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's good to see you here, and I see that you brought some wonderful pieces with you. Let me ask you, William, first off, what got you into creating this beautiful art with us? What started you off?
Well, my journey goes pretty far back, and I'm dating myself, at least 30-some years.
Wow.
Started off with really finding myself as a child, very small child. You know, I was small in stature compared to many of my peers in my neighborhood.
Okay.
And I was interested in playing sports, but because I was so small, I was like the run in some ways, being pushed around and having a very difficult time to keep up with the bigger kids. And I found that I would spend my time drawing many times, and I started to draw. It started off as drawing sports figures, these heroes that I really wanted to become as an athlete. But then it became like my own world, my escape in some ways. And I spent hours just drawing and just, you know, finding myself just falling in love with the whole process of creating art, creating these characters, and just, you know.
So when did you, how old were you at this time? Do you remember when did you grow in love with this art, or did it grow on you? So what age do you recall going back into the artistic side of yourself?
I would say 5 years old, and the only reason why I was able to date that is because I found some old drawings that I did, and I had the dates on the drawings. So that was around I was
5 years of age?
Now, mind you, we're talking about stick figures and you know.
It's still, I mean, but that's art. That's the creative side. So you could take it back all the way back to 5 years of age.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a beautiful thing. So did you actually go to school to learn to become who you are, to develop into who you are at this moment? Did you have to go to school to learn? Because a lot of our kids today who are creative, they don't have this sort of stuff in schools. They've kind of moved some of this out of the way. So did you actually go to school to learn?
Yeah, very fortunate. I got accepted in Baltimore School for the Arts, and that was a high school. Finished and 4 years, and then from there I went to University of the Arts in Philadelphia, where I got my bachelor's degree in art and furniture making.
Furniture?
And then from there I went to graduate school at University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, and continued making art and furniture making, but then my furniture started to take more of a sculptural move. It started to move from traditional to more artistic furniture.
And so is that where this creative side of you blending in the painting and the sculpturing kind of took place?
Yeah.
And so is this a natural thing, would you say, by yourself, that you just picked up naturally and you just roll with it? Or did you have someone, a mentor, someone there to show you, teach you about the creative side that was brought outside of you? Because everything is inside. Exactly. And then it just comes out, or you had someone to actually pull it out of you, would you say?
I would say it was a combination of both. There were definitely huge inspirations and also mentors. I think of a mentor by the name of Joyce Scott. She was an amazing mentor. Some of my furniture teachers, Alphonse Mattia, Stephen Whittlesley, all of them were amazing teachers, but they inspired me and really saw something in me to help pull out, you know, my voice through my art.
Through the arts and so forth. And you're from Baltimore, right?
Yes.
Can you give us a little history about you growing up in Baltimore? I wouldn't say it was, you know, we call it the hood these days. And many of our neighborhoods, they said the neighbor is not so much anymore neighborly. And so we said it's the hood. Growing up, back then in Baltimore, and this creative side in the arts to where you are now, would you say that living in Baltimore, growing up in the neighborhood, being associated with other youth that may not have had that creative side as you did, and or they did, what was the culprit that really got you pulled into this zone of creating such beautiful art?
Well, really, you know, my father was a big inspiration. My father was an artist as well. He didn't pursue it as a career because, you know, he got married, they had me, and my father wanted to be the provider, which he was, a great provider. Okay. So he worked a 9-to-5 job. Less time to produce any art, but he always had still the love for it. And so he encouraged me to continue to do art along with my mother. Good,
that's beautiful, that's beautiful.
In Baltimore, I literally witnessed the change. Baltimore was a blue-collar city, very industrial, hard-working people, going to factories, working on Bethlehem steel mills, and then I literally witnessed all of that leaving the city, you know, those jobs leaving the city, and then those things being replaced with the crack cocaine epidemic.
Wow, so you were able to witness some of these things?
Literally. I mean, I literally remember seeing the change, you know, literally seeing overnight, and it sounds like I'm exaggerating, but literally watching communities change overnight from, you know, my grandparents would go out of town, they would leave the key with the neighbor, sometimes they would leave the doors unlocked, and let the neighbor, and literally that's almost, you know, that changed overnight to a point where it was unheard of.
What do you attribute that to? Do you think we see the effect, we don't deal with the cause? Do you believe there was a cause for that shifting in your perception or in your opinion? If you do, please, I'd like for you to express that.
Well, I meant, you know, people that study human engineering and the human mind and social engineering, they understand that if you take away certain things and you replace them with something else, you're going to get a certain effect. And if all the jobs are taken out of a community and you really don't give people options and you replace them with drugs, and also if you make it seem very appealing, which in the beginning,
I think that's one of the things it is.
In the beginning, that was an appealing thing. It was like, you know, I remember seeing 14-year-old kids riding around in, you know, amazing cars, owning condos at 14. Now that's not the case necessarily now, but in the early stages of that epidemic, it became the thing. You didn't have that blue-collar job, but hey, you could make thousands.
Exactly, by selling drugs and so forth. And another thing that I noticed is, we were talking about the arts, is they pulled the arts, crafts, out of the schools. I remember going, you know, to school here at Castlemont High, just one of them. And you had wood shop, you had metal shop, you had all these various different skills that you can learn from school. Are you seeing that today? Because I believe you work with young youth today.
I do.
Okay.
I'm seeing the emphasis now is more after school programs. And, you know, teachers come in, art teachers, music teachers, woodshop teachers, etc. They come in more as an after-school enrichment program. It's not necessarily, at least in the schools that I work in, it's not an emphasis.
Can you get the skills, though? Let me ask you this. When I was coming up, I knew that I could take a semester, a year of woodshop. Okay? You're prepared well to go out into the world and be a carpenter or electrician. With the after school that you're talking about, because it's what, probably from 3 to 6, something of that nature, I think a lot of the after school programs.
True.
Can you get a lot out of the after school programs, as much as what you were getting?
No, you wouldn't get as much. Number one, a lot of schools, it's difficult for them to find spaces for people. So, you know, say a wood shop, you need a dedicated space. And that's difficult in some schools. And many times you're coming into the school, bringing your materials, bringing the arts. So you need a place. You may actually have to work in a cafeteria. You may have to work in a room that a teacher will say, okay, it's okay to
use this room for this particular
Yeah.
day and time set, but then you have to move back into a regular classroom sort of a setting.
Yeah.
How does that affect someone like yourself and also the student themselves as well?
It makes it difficult. The positive out of it is it at least gives a student the possibility that they can pursue this further. So when I come in, if I see a really gifted student, they may not get the time that they would ordinarily get for an art class or whatever. But the fact is, I'm giving them a small little snippet.
Right.
And I'm hoping that that's creating a spark inside of them where they decide to pursue it on their own or come to me later on and say, hey, Mr. Rhodes, you know, where can I learn more, or are there any other programs? Or sometimes I offer things. So I'm hoping that it creates
the
that
spark
yeah.
that can generate something inside of the spirit of the person. Do you think the arts help the spirit to rest easier when you have this creative side about you? Color. You know, I'm looking at this piece here, as a matter of fact, and I'd like you to discuss this. I mean, it's bright. I call it magical, but it's incredible. Could you explain to our viewers about this particular piece, please?
So this piece, basically, you know, when you look at it, you know, it is obviously the sky and the universe, but it's a much deeper story. I actually took a trip to the Grand Canyon about a year or so ago, and I was went to the Grand Canyon, driving back to the hotel, and I got lost in the desert and took the wrong turn, and I don't know how many people have actually gotten lost in the desert at night. I'm a city person, so it was a different experience for me.
Right, I can hear you.
And it was total fear, total, you know, like I felt I had no control because I'm driving in darkness. The only lights were from my car. And the one thing, it was like almost like this weird little voice told me at some point, just look up at the sky. And I pulled over and I looked up. And when I looked at the sky, it was like something that I had never ever seen before. It was as if it was, not only was it magical because of all of the stars and the light and everything else, but it felt like it was alive. And it had a presence. And at that moment, I knew that this thing, or whatever you call it, this sky, actually, I was connected to it, and it had a greater presence, an intelligent presence, I felt. And seeing that calmed me down in many ways. And I was able to, you know, eventually find my way back to the hotel pretty much in the morning. But anyway, when I came back, you know, it inspired me to do a series of these paintings. This is one of the paintings based on that. So you can see the Grand Canyon, the mountains.
I'm looking there.
At the bottom. But then this is the sky. And to me, I want the sky really to speak more than even the mountains, although the mountains are amazing. That sky really, you know, spoke to me even more so than that landscaping around.
Wow, and this came, I say there are never any accidents. You know, that situation that you came across could have feared you for a long time, but you took the godliness within yourself and calmed your spirit. And it's incredible. You say you looked up at the sky as though you were looking for some answer. Your spirit within you told you to look up, and then you were able to create. How long did it take you to create something of this nature?
Well, this was of a series. So the way I work, I may have 3 or 4 pieces at the same time. So, you know, I was working on probably 2 paintings at the same time along with this.
Oh, really?
So with both of those, it took me several months, I would say. But it would be back and forth.
Back and forth.
I do a certain area in this painting, and then, you know, say, well, maybe I need to come back to it. Then I start working on the other canvas. So between the 2, it was several months.
And I see this beautiful piece of art here, because you're a painter. That's one thing about yourself. But then you flip the script and you come back because I remember you said earlier that you did furniture making.
Yes.
Okay, this is furniture, but I typically see furniture because my background is, mind you, is in office furniture, and this is furniture.
Yes.
Please explain that piece there to our audience, because that is incredible. I see there's this wood that's going on. You got mirrors inside. I see the gold, the color. Can you elaborate a bit on that, please?
So she's a carved wood piece.
Okay.
The face is the natural grain of the wood.
Get out of here.
Yeah, the natural grain of the wood. This is the color of the wood. I did paint her hair in the snake form on the top and added the crown.
Okay.
But she could be considered a mini cabinet because there is a small niche which is cut on the inside at below, which has a label of God.
Right. Okay. I see there.
And so this is a functional piece. You know, it could be used as a small cabinet.
I mean, it's absolutely incredible, and it seems very heavy as well. Now, the crown that you speak of, that made out of wood as well?
Carved wood.
It's carved wood?
Yeah, and I actually do a process where I take my chisel and cut like little inserts, like little pockets out, and then I pop the mirror inside of those little pockets.
Wow, that is incredible. So do you do any shows, actually, of showing your art? Because I'm positively sure with the beauty of such art that you are creating here, that you don't just have it sitting at home. So what do you travel around the city? You're based here, I believe, in San Francisco, are you not?
Yes, I'm in San Francisco.
So do you travel with any of your art? You do any art gallery shows?
I do. Recently, I'm a part of a collective. I'm a co-founder of an African-American art collective called 3.9. And we did a huge exhibition, which was amazing, at University of San Francisco in the Thatcher Gallery.
Okay.
That exhibition just ended, but personally, I do shows all over the country. I was blessed to be invited to be in the Memphis, Tennessee Museum, which is called the Metal Museum in Memphis, Tennessee.
Congratulations.
Have exhibitions in Atlanta. I've shown numerous shows in New York, Chicago, really everywhere. I'm working on an exhibition in San Francisco as well.
Okay. Okay. So let me ask you: do you find many other African American or Black artists, and are they shown? Are our arts being shown? You know, not just here within the Americas. I believe you've traveled outside of the Americas as well. And do you see our arts outside of America?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I mean, we have some, you know, large named artists. I mean, I can think of Kyra Walker, Keondae Wiley. They're some of the huge, you know, artists that are very well known.
Why don't we hear about them then? You know, you might hear about a Van Gogh or something, but why don't we hear about great artists like yourself and some of the ones you've just mentioned? Firstly, they're not in the schools that I never heard of anything like this when I was coming up. What is your take on one of the reasons why we don't? Is one of the first questions. And the second question is it important? Is art really important in today's society? And if so, why?
So the first question, I think one of the reasons why we don't really hear about it is, you know, number one, our culture, our society is based on consumerism, and in some ways, and if, you know, an artist, they becomes, you know, more of a household name if their pieces become almost like products or products. So for example, if I made bed sheets out of this, or if I made, and I'm not belittling that in any way, or if this became a rug or whatever that was at Target or other places, then we'd be more well known. And just, we're in a society that does not necessarily emphasize that. Many of the people that we focus on with the Picassos and the Van Goghs and other people, it's their stories that really catch people, and they've become historical icons in many ways. So everybody, of course, you know, knows the story of Van Gogh with his ear. But the ironic twist is during his lifetime, I mean, most of his paintings his brother bought. He wasn't a successful,
really,
in a financial sense.
Okay.
So that's part of the problem with our society.
Okay.
You know, really dealing with that and understanding that this art is something that should be incorporated in everything, and not just based on consumerism.
Right.
That's my view.
Okay, I appreciate that.
And then to answer the other part of the question, art is extremely important. Extremely important. Because what most of us are unaware of is art affects everything that's going on around us, particularly in America. Art, whether it be just the art of producing tangible things, like I just talked to you about, rugs or clothing or garments or all of those things become part of your culture. And art, when it comes to working with the community or young people, the beauty of it is it opens up things in your brain that forces you to become more innovative and deal with problem solving. So the whole concept of mathematics, understanding how to deal with the whole new technologies and everything else, without having a basic understanding of art, or at least knowing that how the importance of these things, it limits you in some ways.
Okay, well, let me throw this into the equation then. So if art, because music is art, poetry is art, and it's the type of arts, this is art, if you're not giving enough balance in art, positive art, constructive art, do you feel that it limits the growth of a human being?
It does. It totally limits a growth in a human being, and it creates, I think you just said it, it creates this imbalance.
Okay.
Because you're not the yin and the yang.
Right.
You're not in a position where you're balanced. You're just, you live a one-sided existence, which becomes very dangerous. For example, how do you express yourself? I mean, people have experienced severe physical abuse or emotional abuse. You know, they're finding that through producing artwork, that is a way to express or communicate. And a lot of this stuff is dealing with the unconscious, so you may not be able to even articulate that to a doctor or to a counselor. But then when you sit down with that piece of artwork, that unconscious that works through you allows you to articulate the pain and the suffering that you went through in order to kind of work through these issues.
It's like a virtual, like a healing. It can be a healing.
Yes.
Because there's so much going on within our community, and as I had mentioned to you before, that there are schools have been taken out of various different things, such as, you know, arts and craft. And when you don't have this in the schools, and you're talking and you're connecting that with this, I always say spirit for some odd reason, or soul, or the universe, or a higher source. If you're not getting enough of that, and you're being fed, and I'm pretty sure you can appreciate we're being fed as a society, negative images consistently, infomercials consistently, music, we are being fed a certain directive of how music should be, and with that, if we don't get enough of the opposite, the yin as opposed to the yang, then would you say our communication of how we communicate with one another, there's a lacking of the communication because we are missing that other part of the soul or the other part of the arts? I
definitely think it is, definitely.
Wow, okay. Could you explain to us, I see you have another piece there. I mean, that's a very interesting piece. And
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
This piece is called Full Circle. This is a self-portrait.
Okay.
It's based on, has a lot of symbolism in it for me. Sometimes when I do self-portraits, I portray myself in a Cub Scout uniform. As old as I am, I still portray myself as a Cub Scout. I was a Cub Scout, I was a Boy Scout, I was an Eagle Scout.
Wow, okay.
And the reason why I portray myself in that format as a Cub Scout is I feel like that was a period in my life, and I lived for a very long time, where I had a very rose-colored view of the world. And through a lot of emotional things, which these vines represent, wrapping around me, there was a transformation. Now, some of it you could kind of define as trauma or sorrow or loss. One was a breakup in a relationship, romantic relationship. The other was the death of my father.
Okay.
So all of these things kind of transformed me and made me start to look at things a little differently in the world.
Okay.
And the African forms that are, this is an African mask, and this is an African form. That to me symbolizes really connecting to my source, which is Africa, and also tying into my ancestors.
Wow.
Because I feel like my ancestors helped me get
through this make this transition. And that's really powerful that we go back. As a matter of fact, that's what Sankofa actually means, that we have to go back and we have to connect with our ancestors, with our elders, to have that, once again, that balance. If the audience wants to get with you, our viewers, if they want to get in contact with you, how can we reach out to you? Do you have a phone number? Do you have a website?
I do.
Could you tell our audience how they can get in contact with you?
Yeah, it's William Rhodes. Oh, I should start by saying www.williamrhodesart.com, and that's WILLIAMRHODESART.com, or like me on Facebook, which is William Rhodes Art on Facebook.
And I can tell you, the gallery, my brother, I mean, you have some art that's absolutely incredible. Our next show, I want to have you back.
Thank you.
I want to invite you back because you have another piece that I would like for the audience to see. You didn't bring it here with you, and I can assure you, when you see this piece, as any of his art is absolutely incredible, they are thoroughly going to enjoy it, and I'm looking so forward to having you back here on the show. And I appreciate you coming out, and I appreciate all of the art that you are actually creating and giving us.
Thank you.
And so, gosh, you had a piece. When I first met you before we close, I met you at a transformation event, and we vibed. Our connectivity was there, and you said, "I'm gonna give you a call." We exchanged cards, and you said, "I'm gonna give you a call." So listen up, folks. When you say you're gonna do something, do it. This brother called me right after, and I was very quick to jump on it. So thank you, Brother Rhodes, for coming out. I appreciate you. This is Education in the Community. I am Kinara Sankofa, your host, and we will see you again soon. Good night.